welcome back to the Shop of Wood Spun Round. This is Doug. It's good to have you again with me. Got a piece of Osage orange on the lathe. I'm just turning a small dish. Going to do the bulk of the work with the Easy Wood tools for a couple of reasons. One, some folks have asked me to. I'm also a demonstrator for Easy Wood tools and haven't practiced as much as I probably should have with these tools. But anyway, that's what we're doing here. Using the rougher here to get the outside shape. This is not a dead square cutter, but it's a radius cutter. And as you can see, it's taking the shavings off very nicely. Osage orange, if you've never used it before, this bright yellow is the natural color. It's hard. It's used in many places where it's found as fence posts because it is so hard, and it resists rot, resists insect damage as well. Even though this piece has been laying around for quite a while, this was a scab off of a log, and it has a couple of very small pinholes where some bugs got in it at some point, but nothing major at all. Not like some woods that will have big grubs inside of it, big nasty things. These are little teeny pinholes. The wood is very, very solid, very hard. You'll see throughout the time it does have a good bit of color. I'm turning it here on a glue block. You might can see it there between the bright yellow Osage orange and the chuck is a more of a brown piece. That's a piece of cherry I've been using to turn plates for a couple of weeks now, and it's working excellently. There, I've turned it around. You can see the glue in the center of the blank. That's some CA glue that I used, and when I go to knock that glue block off, a chisel right at the joint between the blank and the glue block, a couple of wraps, and it pops right off. I'm just checking to see. I'm realizing I am not round at all, so I've got to get it round as well as flat across the front. This is the finisher, the Easy Wood finisher. Has the round carbide cutter on it. Just to get it round, and then you see I'm going across the front, just getting a nice clean surface there. Want to see what I've got. I'm not round on the outside edge yet, and I'm just looking to see if I've got any other issues. There was a small little crack right there in the edge, but it went away as we got the blank cleaned up. Just checking to see what I've got going on. I want to make sure I'm at the right height. These Easy Wood tools, they need to cut at dead center, or maybe just a hair above. You don't want to go very much above dead center, and you definitely don't want to go below center. But right on center line is what they were designed to do. One of the issues, especially for a new turner, is that dead center, that little nub right in the center. Some people they find it extremely difficult to get that nub gone. Others find it extremely hard to not go too far with it. You see there, it came off. I had made my recess here on the back so tiny, so shallow, it just didn't have enough to grip onto. So it popped off, and of course I had a couple little places there, so what was left on the inside, I made a little, just a small tenon, just enough to grab onto, turned it back around so that I can redo this bottom side and get a recess in there that's strong enough to withstand the work that's going to be done. So I've done the recess. I'm just reshaping this bottom side. Again, still using the easy finisher, the large round cutter, and it's working quite well. I noticed when I was doing this turning, and I'm seeing it now very clearly, that the cutter on this finisher is not the sharpest. I probably need to replace it. As I remember, I've turned it 2 or 3 times already, and so it probably needs to be replaced. It's one of the beauties of the Easy Wood tools, the carbide cutters. You replace the cutter. They don't sharpen. You don't have to go through that issue. For the new turner, that's a big deal. A lot of times they haven't learned how to sharpen yet, don't have the equipment to sharpen with yet. And so the Easy Wood tools just make it a little easier by replacing those carbide tips when they get dull. Another good thing about the carbide is you turn them, whether it's the square rougher or it's the round finishers. Could even be the detail tips. Whatever it is, you change those cutters so you don't have to worry about sharpening. Went ahead and sanding here on the back side. Once I turn the top side, I won't come back to this and sand it. At least that's kind of the plan. But you notice I did not finish it. I sort of intentionally left it. It was sort of a oversight, but at the same time it's intentional. I wanted to get this inside done and finished, and then I've got another way I want to hold this to turn it around and finish it. So we left the back side. It is sanded. I will end up sanding just a touch more, but not much. Here's the finisher. Taking light cuts here. I don't want to throw it off the lathe again. That was totally my fault the first time. I knew that was a shallow recess. I knew I needed light cuts, but as you saw, I let too much of that cutter get engaged in the wood. It's both in the bottom and on that part in the inside that I had left. So what I'm doing here is I'm cutting that center lump out just slowly, going toward the headstock, toward my chuck. So my pressure is got one direction and not sideways on it. So I'm getting close to done. You saw me feel right there. I'm checking for ditches. I'm checking for lumps and bumps or ridges, whatever it might be. Also checking the center, make sure I get that little nib out of the center taken care of. So we're pretty close to it. Got it pretty much the way we want it. We'll do some sanding here, and I don't show you much of the sanding. We're going to go from 80 grit to 220. There's the end of my dust collection. Bring it up close. Like I said, I'm going to start with 80 grit, which makes sure I've got a nice even surface from the very edge all the way into the very center. Making sure that surface is uniform across it. I'm trying to get it as uniform as possible. So I've sanded. blowing it off there, so I was done. I'd done the 220, and you can see there's a little bit of a shine on that wood already just from 220. Part of that is because the wood is so hard. Gonna get a little conversation starter here. It's a sanding sealer. It's an aerosol sanding sealer, just to give it a good seal and a base to the finish. It will dry quite quickly. I'm going to take a paper towel and just kind of wipe over it, just to make sure that we don't have any puddles, no thick areas that need to be wiped off. Help it to dry a little quicker, but it's already dry. It's already dry. This is some Axe abrasive paste. It'll take my surface from that 220 that I sanded to up to around 1,000. Does a phenomenal job. Back when I was in wood shop in high school, we would put sanding sealer on it, partly to raise the grain. And then we would sand like crazy. Then we'd put some more sanding sealer on it, sand like crazy, and getting that fine surface. This abrasive paste, I don't have to do that. Yes, the sanding sealer will raise the grain a little bit if it's inclined to do so. But the abrasive paste will take those little fine hairs, take them off for me, so I don't have to worry about it. And the abrasive paste, the beauty of it is I don't have any of the most dangerous sanding dust in the air. It does a great job of cleaning that wood off, taking it to 1,000 grit without that super fine sanding dust being airborne and getting in my lungs. So we've done that. I'm going to use a little wax here. This is the Axe polishing and restoring paste. This is a high content carnauba, or a high carnauba content wax. Very stiff. This is the only time in the shop that I use a cotton cloth for anything. I use it as an applicator for this wax. Just a little small, like a 2.5 by 2.5 square. Some old t-shirts that I cut up years ago. And I'll just leave it here in the wax. Apply a thin coat. It doesn't take lots and lots. In fact, if you put too much on, it kind of gets tough to buff off. It wants to streak. So just a thin coat. Let it sit for just a minute or two. It doesn't take very long. Just let it kind of stiffen up on the surface, and then use a paper towel. At first, you're just kind of making sure it's a good even coat, and then you're taking off the excess that is on the surface, and then you start to buff it. And as you're buffing, you begin to build a little bit of heat. That helps that carnauba to melt into the wood and into itself. Then as it rehardens, it cools and rehardens, it will give you a long-lasting surface, but also a pretty, it's not super high gloss, but it gives you a glossy surface. You can see the gloss there in the lower part. It's shining pretty good. That is not a nick up on that top edge either. That was a dark spot on the edge that just looked like a nick. So here I've got the mini cold jaws, and it's plenty big enough for this little dish. While I was doing the abrasive paste and the wax, I went ahead and came over the edge about an inch, and so all I've got to do is kind of finish off. Decided I'd go ahead and hit that recess particularly with a sandpaper. Also that little foot that you see there, that was a late addition. So here we're just buffing up the wax, finishing it off. My paper towel went flying, so that I was done. So it was no big deal. Hope you'll hit the like button. If you haven't already, I hope you'll subscribe. Hit the notification bell, and YouTube will let you know every time that I put up a new video or do a live. stick around and see the pictures here at the end too. This is Doug. Until we meet again, I hope you're able to spin them around.